Welcome to the Life You're Made For with me, Dr. Heather Penny. We're going to be having conversations that talk about us spiraling up versus spiraling down, because we all want to be living lives that are about thriving, not just surviving. This is the life you're made for. So let's get going. Hello, my friends. I am so excited. This week, Gray Space came out, and it's my new book. And it's this idea that we all have the capacity to create spaces of grace around us, but many of us don't really understand that we have this capacity or this power. So what I do is I get really specific in this book, and I create 7 practices for how you can create spaces of grace around us. And really, it's this idea of we're creating spaces that we all want to live and lead in, and understanding each of us have a role to step into that. I think personally it's very exciting because many of us don't realize that we have the capacity to change the culture. And let me give you an example of this. This is how I start out the book. You know, it was in World War I, around 1914, I believe it was. And the French were on, and the British and the Allies were on one side, and the Germans were on the other side. And they were out in the middle of this field, and they were each in their trenches. And between the 2 trenches, there was what's called a no man's land, this field. And it was the week before Christmas. And pretty soon, someone on the German side put up a Christmas tree. Someone started kind of singing Christmas carols a couple days later. And pretty soon, it progressed into the actual day of Christmas Day, where it ends up, they have a ceasefire, and both sides of the battle are meeting in no man's land, not to battle it out, not to fight each other, but actually to exchange gifts. And it's a powerful historical account that even one of the authors, Weintraub, talked about in Silent Night. And he explained how this all went down. And I use this to catalyst for this book, Gray Space, because gray space can be cultivated and started with one person. And what we can realize is that it only takes one person to change the whole battlefield. I'm really curious of who was that one person that was kind of sitting there in the trenches going, I'm over this. It's a week out. I'm missing my family, friends. I'm just going to put up a Christmas tree. I don't even care who the enemy is or isn't. It is Christmas, and it's Christmas time. That ripple effect that went out across the battlefield, where it called on the humanity and the humane spirit of individuals to join him, to say, hey, let's create spaces of grace. Let's celebrate Christmas together. Let's just stop fighting for a while and start really enjoying that we have the opportunity to actually celebrate Christmas. What happened the next day on December 26th, when they resumed the battle, because they had done this, they actually had to bring in all fresh troops because they refused to shoot at each other. They started shooting above each other's head. I love this story because it really shows that we each have the capacity to create graces of space in the most difficult and challenging and even antagonistic environments. So take that over to our places that we work and live in. We are being challenged on a daily basis, oftentimes, whether it's in the home or in our workplaces, with any kind of challenge or even an antagonistic response to us, sarcasm, cynicism, anger, frustration, depression, some of these harder emotions that are coming at us. You know, it's easy for us just to react to it. So I start out the book with the very first practice, and it's responding versus reacting. And this idea of responding really is we have a choice. We have a choice in the moment. We have a split second. That person just snapped at us. Our teenage son just got mad at us about something. Are we going to snap back? That would be a reaction. Or are we going to choose to respond? Now, let me be clear. Responding versus reaction is not a passive. It's not a passive action. It's not a passivity. It is an intentionally showing up saying, I am not going to be victimized or become a victim to this environment. I'm going to choose to start throwing gifts across the battlefield versus throwing grenades. I'm going to choose to respond to this cranky individual in front of me in a variety of ways. I'm going to ask for a kinder tone of voice if it's my own child. I'm going to put up a boundary in my workplace and say, yeah, I would love to talk with you about this, but let's wait till we are in a calm place before we can proceed on this. That's a way to respond versus just getting mad back. Do you see the difference between responding and reacting? It's really that choice to engage productively when we are tempted to retaliate and choosing to understand when we are tempted to be right. It's learning how to give up our right to be right. And there's a humility that really permeates through these 7 practices of grace space to say, I am willing to participate in cultivating spaces that we all want to live and lead in versus being a reactor to other people's anger, frustration, marginalization, discrimination. I'm not going to react to it, but I will respond to it. And choosing to respond is a higher level of thinking that says, how do I show up in this moment in the way that I will be proud of, in the way that will mend these spaces and make us better as humans, not spiraling down and make us worse? And aren't we seeing that a lot right now in our world? It's almost like humanity has forgotten their humaneness. Being human means you have the choice to really decide how you are going to respond to the situation in front of you versus just react like it's a survival mode or like you're being victimized by the world around you. You're not. You have an opportunity to actually step in and take control and decide who you want to be as a human being and how you want to respond to that situation. So that's the first practice. Second practice is what I call questioning versus accusing. And it's this idea of choosing curiosity when we're tempted to leap to assumptions. Don't we all do this? I know I'm a really fast processor, and I'm really going to be speaking to all my fast thinkers and fast processors out there. Hey, when we're on, we're on. But I tell you what, when we're off, we're off. I can quickly jump to assumptions. One of the disciplines that I have worked on and I continue to work on, whether it's in the home or the workplace, is being able to slow down long enough to ask a question. Oh, why are you thinking that way? Or what am I missing here? Or what do I need help on that I don't understand? These are some questions that we can slow it down. What did you mean by that? Man, that simple question of asking them to tell me what they meant versus just assuming that I know what they meant has saved me a world of hurt. So it's this idea of choosing curiosity when we're tempted to leap to assumptions. The third practice, which I really love, is receptivity versus defensiveness. And I see this a lot in my work in the field that I coach in. And when I work with clientele, I'm telling you, the ones that get the highest level of return on their investment, the ones who yield the highest results in their personal growth and development are the ones that have said, I'm showing up and I am going to be like a sponge. I'm just going to receive, be very, very receptive. The ones that I really can't get anywhere with are the ones that show up very defensive, really wanting to say they already know it all and they don't need to hear anything. That you can already see, and you know this instinctively, but you could already see how this breaks down our opportunity to actually grow in life. So when we want to create spaces of grace around us, it's that awareness that we're choosing to remain open and understand all perspectives when we're tempted to defend and reject. And sometimes we're quick to defend and reject when it's something we don't know, we're not familiar with, it's not part of our experience. And I work with all walks of life with people. I work with all different industries. I work with all types of backgrounds. And one of the things that has really helped me is to continuously remain open to tell me about your perspective on this. Tell me your story. Tell me why you are responding the way you are. Help me understand where you're coming from. It's letting ourselves be teachable, I should say. and to be taught by others versus showing up trying to give all the answers. And I don't think any of us want to be that, right? We all know that know it all. And honestly, my own fingers are pointing back. There's times that I have been the know it all, and it feels so good to have the answers. But as I grow and mature and age and hopefully grow in my own wisdom, being able to show up and say, I don't have the answers, but I'm going to stay in this, and we're going to get our collective clarity together, and we're going to ask the questions until we feel like we have the clarity that we both need, not just what one of us needs. And that's what receptivity versus defensiveness does for us. It helps us slow it down and create that space of grace so that we can learn from one another. The fourth practice, which I love, is constructive versus destructive communication. One of the number one reasons I have brought into organizations and groups and individuals' lives is really the issue of communication. Whether it's personal dynamics and relationship or whether it's the professional realm, communication is the number one issue. Now, I find this to be challenging because that is so broad, isn't it? When they say, Heather, I want to work with you because we're struggling with communication, I kind of laugh and I say, yeah, don't we all? I have to get a little bit more specific and understand what they mean by communication. And here's what I've narrowed it down to. I have realized that communication can take kind of two roads. It can take a constructive communication road, or it can take a destructive communication road. The clearer we are on these two roads, the better communicator we will be. So one of the questions I ask myself a lot as a coach, as a mother, as a wife, as a friend, is my communication being constructive or destructive? And let me tell you, people will let you know. They will let you know if they don't like your communication, it feels destructive. And it could be as simple as we're moving too fast, and so we're acting a little impatient, or we're not slowing it down to ask the questions, or it could be as destructive as really getting angry at people, being forceful, blaming, shaming, calling names, using guilt. This is a high destructive, toxic behavior. But we could also do it in micro ways too, right? A little roll of the eyes, a little sigh, because we have to be patient and listen an extra 20 seconds or 2 minutes, right? We have these ways that are constructive communication styles or destructive ones. The more you're conscious of it, first of all, the more you're going to be able to create and cultivate graces of space around you. But more importantly, the more you're going to attract that to you. And don't we want other people to be able to constructively communicate with me? I do. Being able to step in that space and say, yes, communicate constructively with me, but do not communicate destructively with me. We have to be that if that's what we want. And so we're choosing to find common ground and staying solution oriented when we are tempted to cast blame and be cynical. That kind of helps you understand the choice between constructive and destructive. And certainly some of these are really big, broad strokes, right? But it's this idea that if I can give you 7 concrete handles to start practicing, and these are the ones I practice in my own life, does not mean that we will be perfect. Perfect is not the goal here. Really, the goal is raising our mindfulness, raising our intentionality, and really raising our self-awareness. What is it like to engage with you? How do people feel when they engage with Heather? These are the practices that I kind of run through to make sure that when I encounter people, whether it's the barista over at my favorite coffee shop, or whether it's a client that I'm working with, or whether it's my son or daughter, how do they feel when they engage with me? Do they feel like I'm offering this space of grace around them that offers clear, constructive communication? Or do they feel a little unsafe and they find themselves wanting to be more quiet around me because they just don't feel really safe? I may not be really aggressive, or I may not be really volatile, but maybe I'm still communicating a little bit of a superiority that I know this more than you. Or maybe I'm not really that interested in hearing your perspective because I'm really confident of mine, right? Don't we all do this to some degree? The goal is not perfection. The goal is start raising your self-awareness and start asking, what's it like to engage with me? Do you feel like you enjoy my communication style? Is it constructive or does it feel destructive? Even little microaggressions. Or is it feeling like when you walk away, you feel better about who you are and you feel valued, you feel heard? These are examples for how constructive communication feels to be involved with that. And learning to ask for that, learning to engage with that, learning to get feedback around that will help grow your desire to be a constructive communicator versus a destructive communicator. The fifth one, connection versus protection. I love this because it goes along with my life mission, which is really to build bridges between people. Man, I want to contribute to the well-being of others, help them reach their potential. But, I also want them to feel like they have a bridge to one another, to myself, to either powerful emotions like love and joy and peace and patience and kindness and goodness and faithfulness. These are all powerful tools that allow us to connect to the world, to one another, and to offer more at a much higher level. This is what makes us different from the animals. We have the capacity to communicate and live at a high level that actually does the soul good. Learning how to be more intentional about what we bring to this world and the spaces that we create around us is critical. And so we're choosing to build bridges when we're tempted to build silos. This is the difference between connection versus protection. Those of us who are worried about protection, we're not focused on building bridges. We're focused on building huge walls between us and our perspectives, our beliefs, our opinions. These are the people that are more focused on being right and wanting to be validated for their rightness. Those of us who have a security and a confidence in ourselves and our identity can be very comfortable about holding what we know to be true in our beliefs without having to blast other people's beliefs. I'm very comfortable listening to other people's beliefs, even when it contradicts my own. In extreme cases, of course, I'll put up a strong boundary and say, no, not interested in hearing that. But in less extreme cases, it's just humanity learning to get along and listen to one another that creates these bridges of connection versus protection. And another reminder, as I'm talking about the two that juxtapose each other, again, the goal is not perfection. There are times for protection. There are times to react. There are times to accuse. There are times for these. But they should really be more in the minority of how we are responding in this world. The majority of the way that we live and interact with humanity needs to be on this side of connecting, of questioning, of responding. And in this instance, as we look at this fifth one of connection versus protection, we're really focusing on this powerful question of what will build a stronger connection to this person in front of me? How do I ensure that they feel valued and heard and even loved by me? Isn't that the ultimate gift to humanity? And don't we all want to feel heard and valued and loved? We all want to. What that looks like in our places of home versus our places of work, yes, it's going to look different, but the value is still the same. How I love a colleague and how I love my son. Yeah, the difference will be definitely have a unique aspect to it, but the value is still there. I want everybody who crosses my path to have a deep and meaningful connection so that they feel like they have been seen and heard and valued. And they have this permission to get their identity validated, to get their humanness validated. This is what happens when we choose connection versus protection. We are offering a really gracious space for humans to have the freedom to explore of who they are and not this fear that they have to protect who they are. And when we offer just a protection and we don't offer any kind of connection with humanity, people show up around us feeling like they have to protect themselves. If you're noticing that, it's probably because you're not focusing as much on how to connect with the person in front of you. And sometimes it's just a simple question. Tell me more about what your day at work looks like. Do you have kids? What do you enjoy doing on your off time? It could be really simple questions like that, or even deeper questions. But it's looking for ways to connect that feel good to the person in front of you. Not you, not just you. It's serving the person in front of you and finding what makes you feel like a connection to you. I remember oftentimes my kids would come home from school. What's the first question parents ask? How was your day? What's the answer they get? Fine. I learned really quickly, this is a ridiculous exercise going back and forth with each other. So I began to be more specific. What did I really want to know about? I wanted to know what brought them joy that day. I wanted to know what made them laugh. So I started shifting the question and I started saying, hey, son, what made you laugh today? Oh, I love that question. It was specific and it was connecting with him and it brought him to a connection with me. I would ask my daughter, what made you laugh today? I had such a fun time understanding what brought humor in their world and what brought them joy that day. And I even understand their sense of humor. Do you see what I'm saying about connection? We're looking for specific ways to connect with people in front of us. The freedom versus control is number 6. Boy, I see this a lot. Honestly, I see it a lot in parenting and in marriages, and I see it a lot in the workplace. Supervisors, leaders, they think leadership means controlling their people, controlling the outcome or controlling the results. I think we're confusing control with responsibility. Certainly leaders feel the responsibility. I see them feel the pressure for that, and I have a lot of compassion for that. But we cannot let the responsibility of getting the results and tending for the bottom line and getting our team activated, we cannot confuse that with controlling our people. And a lot of times we do because it's based out of fear. Anytime we're trying to control, it's a fear-based response. And we've all done it. Whether it's the parenting or in the home or whether it's in the workplace, we've all had moments where we tried to control the individual in front of us because really we're fearful of anything from we're not going to meet our bottom line or our goal, so I've got to control my team or this individual's work progress. There's a difference between coming alongside of them and you offer them support and structure without it crossing over to control. So it's choosing freedom, freedom from fear, freedom from trying to control your people, and giving your people the freedom to believe in themselves and to feel your belief in them. This is really important, and this cultivates freedom. But if we're stuck in that control space, all we're doing is we're limiting our people's ability to show up with their best self, because you know how it feels. If someone is kind of hovering out of fear that you're going to make a mistake or not meet the bottom line or not get the results, it cripples us, doesn't it? It makes us feel like someone is breathing down our neck. This is why these terms come up. Hands in our back. This reduces our capacity to perform at optimal levels because we're so focused on that feeling of feeling control that it does not allow us to work in our highest level of freedom. And when freedom is offered, we begin to start really moving into solution-oriented thinking. We move into new ideas, and we feel the support of our leaders behind us. It elevates our creativity and pulls out new possibilities, new potential that we didn't even know we had. Right? Think about your favorite leader or coach or teacher or parent in your life, someone that really believed in you and offered freedom. It gave you that permission to begin to explore new possibilities that we didn't even know we had. And that's what freedom versus control does. And it's choosing to share our power when we're tempted to dominate. Isn't that powerful? When we're tempted to dominate. Okay, the last one, number 7, is trust versus fear. I love ending with this practice because it does complement the freedom versus control, but ultimately it's learning how to trust yourself trust others, trust the process, and it's choosing to believe when we're tempted to panic. And I see this a lot in the workplace. And so I kind of learn for myself as I watch this. The great leaders can feel the crises of change and curveballs and unexpected things that are happening. But boy, they stay in it and they trust their people. They trust the process. They trust the power for new possibilities, new solutions, the ability to troubleshoot. And I see how powerful trust is. And on the flip side, I see how fear can really take us out. It takes out teams, it takes out organizations, it takes out countries, right? We've seen that in history. Fear can really dominate. And the counteractive measure for fear is choosing trust, choosing to believe when we're tempted to be panic. And we've all faced this. I could feel myself facing it more recently, not too long ago, actually in launching Grace Space. We were so excited to launch it. Everything was up and ready to go, or so we thought. The morning of the launch came and we were all excited, my whole team. We couldn't wait to get on there. Nothing. Nothing was on any of these booksellers' websites. We didn't know what had happened and what had gone wrong. I could feel the panic rising, right? I'm a self-published author. I'm trying to get things out there. I'm like, nope, I trust myself. I trust the process. I trust the team. And those of you who know me know I have my faith is important to me. So I trust God. All of this is my leaning into my trust when I could feel the panic rising. And I had to stay in this for 3 days. 3 days. But my true belief is I get to trust myself. I get to trust the process. I get to trust my team. I get to trust God. I just kept chanting that throughout the day with every new problem that came our way and trying to figure out things that were beyond me. I don't know how all of these behind the scenes things work for how books get published out there and how they get on websites and how people start buying. These are stuff that I don't understand. But I know there's people out there that understand different puzzle pieces to this puzzle. And I get to trust that each of them are going to be showing up with their puzzle piece at the exact right moment to fix this problem. And they did. It never happens, I'll be honest. Never happens as quick as I like, honestly. But 3 days was this exercise for me in practicing grace space with myself, with my team, and even just with the process. I'm like, well, these things happen. Are you kidding? There's worse things that are happening in this world. Is this something I really want to panic over? No, it is not. It is not. There are people facing much harder challenges in this world besides a book getting published at the right time. Is it ideal? Of course not. Could I feel the embarrassment? Of course I could. But being able to stay in that space and say, no, I choose grace. In a time of crises, I choose grace. And isn't that what makes the great leaders? I hope as I continue to age that I will continue to just grow in each of these 7 practices. And so I offer them to you because it's something that has allowed me to cultivate spaces of grace around me. And I'm better when I have kind of like 7 handles to hold on to, because grace is a big word, isn't it? Space is a big word. What does that mean when I say I'm going to choose to be a person of grace and I'm going to choose to create and cultivate spaces of grace around me? Well, it means these 7 things. It means I get to choose to respond versus react. I get to choose to question versus accuse. I get to choose to be receptive versus defensive. I get to choose to be constructive versus destructive in my communication. I get to choose to connect versus protect. I get to choose freedom versus control, and I get to choose trust versus fear. These are like lifelines to reach for, but start practicing them now. I tell people all the time, this is like going to the gym. You're going to lift 5 pounds, then 10 pounds, and 15 pounds, and 20 pounds. Pretty soon you should be lifting 25, 30 pounds. Your muscles should be getting stronger in this so that when the crises hit, you're ready. Isn't that why we work out and stay physically fit? It's not just to look good, right? We want a high quality of life. We want to be able to respond and be able to stay in that space to be strong enough to take whatever comes at us. This is like mentally and emotionally preparing us to take on whatever comes at us. And I want you to feel as prepared as possible. And more importantly, I want you to feel the power that you hold within you to cultivate spaces of grace. All right, everybody. It's been so fun being on this today and just chatting with you a little bit about it. Thank you for all the wonderful notes and texts and emails I've gotten and received and wonderful reviews. The excitement around Grace Space being out has just been so fun. And I do believe it's going to change the worlds that we live and lead in. So thank you, everyone. And here I am still cheering you on. Thanks for joining us. We had such a great time today. And obviously, we are all stepping into this life that we're made for. But isn't it nice to have a little bit of support along the way? If you want to find out more about the life that you're made for, come find me at heatherpenny.com. Go ahead and subscribe. Give us a review. That really helps us out and helps spread the word. You get to step into the life that you're made for. Cheering you on.